Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Max, and if you don't know me already, my brother and I started a car rental company back in 2021. And funny enough, when we started, we had no idea what we wanted to do. We just knew we saw a YouTube video and we're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Turo, you can buy a car and rent it out yourself. That day we went out, bought our first car, and the rest is history. We now have a rental fleet that we run, Turo and private, and we're just making videos trying to help out the community. And in this one, I want to talk about kind of behind the scenes a little bit on our thought process when we're buying a car and what we think about, because there's a lot you have to take into consideration. A lot of people will go to the dealership and just buy whatever they can, or whatever they get pre-approved for, and they don't think about anything after that, which kind of sucks. So I'll just break down, there's really four main pillars on what we think about when we're buying a car. The first one, and I mean it's really the most important, is the return on investment, the ROI. So what we look at is what we buy the car for, what we can rent it out for, and what we can make every single month. And when you look at that, usually we'll look at Turo and we'll look at the private side as well, and look at the regular utilization for that vehicle and figure out how much it makes every single month. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, just depending on the time of the season. But figuring out the return on investment is very, very important. Along with the return on investment, this is the second pillar, but it kind of ties in a little bit, is the depreciation. So when you're looking at a car, you don't want to buy something that has really high depreciation. The best example I can think of, that's just like a standard car that probably has really high depreciation, is a Maserati. Typically those, I don't know percentage, but I know those depreciate very, very fast, especially off the lot, brand new. Maybe not the new MC20, but like that depreciates so fast. So you obviously have to calculate that into what you make on it, but that is probably a car that we wouldn't just go out and buy unless it's depreciated a ton. So figuring out the depreciation in a vehicle and making sure that it doesn't outweigh any of the pros in the vehicle. I'd rather have a car that we hold it for 2 years and we can sell it for maybe just under or at what we bought it for. I mean, ideally more, but that's not always the case, rather than a car that's lost 20% a year, which I'm sure you could easily find, especially if you're buying cars brand new. So definitely take that into consideration. The next factor is maintenance, and this is so important, and we've learned our lesson along the way, and there's tons of factors in maintenance. One is like how many problems a vehicle will have, and maybe if there's any main problems. I'll give you a couple examples. We bought two in our career on Turo. We bought two Nissan Quests back to back, of course, and we didn't really know that there's transmission problems, but we learned that very quickly as one transmission blew and the second one was getting close to miles, so we're afraid the same thing was going to happen, and we lost a ton of money on those two deals. So if we would have done the research and known that they had mechanical problems mainly in the transmission, we probably wouldn't have bought those. The second thing to think about is the cost of the maintenance. So maybe a car doesn't have a ton of maintenance problems, but think about how much it costs for the maintenance problems. Like for example, like the cost of maintenance on the Lamborghini is a lot more than maybe a Nissan Versa. So just kind of looking at that, given there's other factors to that, like a Lamborghini maintenance. I know that the percentage that it typically costs for a year on a Lamborghini of maintenance, percentage-wise, is less than one of the vehicles that we have. And I've already done the numbers, but definitely do your research in looking up like yearly typical maintenance on the vehicle that you're looking at buying. And then remember also that, like, I think the typical year span is like 12,000 miles for a vehicle for maintenance. And depending on what your plan is, as far as how many miles you allow the renters, usually they get more than that. I'd say our average is 20 to 25,000 miles a year is pretty average for our vehicles. This last pillar that we look at when buying vehicles is how hard is it to sell. And this one's really important, because when you're looking at selling a car, this kind of factors into depreciation, almost like forced depreciation. And I'll give you a really, really good example. So we bought a Slingshot. That was our first car. We didn't look at ROI because honestly, return on investment wasn't there. Honestly, it was making the same amount that we had a Ford Fusion is making very similar amount. The Slingshot was just making a little more, but it cost twice as much. So that wasn't worth it. The maintenance on it wasn't a ton of maintenance, like it wasn't very often, but it's really, really expensive. An oil change on it was like $180, I think. And then like anything else was so expensive. So that really sucked. And then the resale on that, like for us to sell that car was very, very difficult because we didn't think about like who wanted to buy it. Like where's your demographic? Nobody wants a Slingshot. And the people that do, it's a very, very small portion. Maybe it's another Turo host or somebody looking to get on Turo, or maybe somebody just looking for a toy, because that's really what it is. But that, I mean, that's so important to look at how many people are looking at buying your car. I'm sure there's a lot more people looking at buying Priuses than there are Slingshots. So again, the 4 things that we look at is the return on investment that we're going to get on the vehicle, the maintenance, like how much maintenance and how much it's going to cost us, the depreciation and how quickly it depreciates, hopefully not at all if you can buy it at the right price, and then obviously how easy it is to sell, because the easier it is to sell, the easier it is going to be for you to cycle through cars and continue on your journey. So those are just a couple tips, kind of tricks for you, and hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.